There is something about fathers and their daughters that defies explanation. Call it instinct, call it experience, but certainly there is something that comes with loving someone unconditionally since the day they drew their first breath. Sometimes fathers see things that everyone else misses, things that love-struck daughters dismiss as overprotection, things that charming suitors work carefully to hide. This is a case where a father saw something in a suitor that others simply did not. He had all the credentials that should have made him the perfect son-in-law, a diplomatic family, international education, and a bright future. On paper, he was everything a father might want for his daughter. But sometimes, what matters isn't what's written on paper. Sometimes, what matters are the internal alarm bells. Sometimes fathers just know. This is the case of Duah versus the Republic, where a father's intuition was right when he desperately hoped he was wrong. Picture this: a love so intense it claimed to surpass Romeo and Juliet, a brilliant doctor lying dead in her hospital flat, and a confession whispered in the dead of night that would seal a man's fate forever. It began like a fairy tale. Duah and Agnes, two young Ghanaians studying abroad in India, their paths crossing in a foreign land. He was the son of Ghana's High Commissioner, diplomatic royalty. She was destined to become a doctor. Their families grew close, with Agnes's father even hosted in India by the High Commissioner in his home. But fairy tales, as we know, don't always have happy endings. Love bloomed between them, but Agnes's father saw something others didn't. He opposed the marriage with every fiber of his being. Was it intuition? A father's protective instinct? We may never know. But Agnes was smitten, perhaps blinded by the prestige of marrying into diplomatic circles. They married anyway, twice, once in India and once in Ghana. Both ceremonies conducted behind Agnes's family's back. They even had a child together, but the foundation of their union was already cracking. Duah moved to the UK, taking up a prestigious position as a research scholar. Agnes remained in Ghana, now a qualified doctor working in the Department of Gynecology at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. She split her time between the hospital flats and her father's airport residence. In April 1985, Duah claimed he was receiving troubling letters from Agnes, letters that painted her as a frustrated and desperate woman. He flew back to Ghana for what would be a short visit. He claimed he checked into a hotel and then made his way to Agnes's flat at Kolebu. He was there for 3 days, and that's all it took for love to turn deadly. April 9th to April 11th, 1985. But before dawn broke on April 12th, Dr. Agnes Yeboah was dead, lying in her bed with a star boot to her chest. At 2:30 a.m. that morning, a taxi waited outside Dr. Francis Duah's house in Kuku Hill, Busu. Francis was Duah's own uncle, and he would later testify about the chilling moment his nephew appeared at his door, leaving behind a bag and 1,000 pounds for their baby. As they walked back to the waiting taxi, Duah uttered 2 words in Twi that would be analyzed seriously in court. Meku Agi. I have killed Agi. Duah was arrested and taken to court. The postmortem revealed the brutal nature of Agnes's death. It was no suicide. The angle of penetration, the sheer force required. Dr. Seth Granting, a pathologist, testified that Agnes had been stabbed with such violence the knife reached her 6th rib at her back. If she had indeed wanted to end her life, she would have known exactly how to do it quickly and efficiently. Instead, she died from profuse bleeding, a victim of external force. In court, Duah spun a tale of tragic romance. According to him, Agnes was so frustrated by her father's opposition that she proposed a suicide pact. She would stab herself first to prove her commitment, and he would also follow. But this story had massive holes and gaps. Agnes's brother testified that she was happy and going about her work normally, showing no signs of desperation or depression Duah described. The prosecution asked the jury to reconsider. If truly Duah loved Agnes as much as he claimed, why didn't he call for help? Other doctors were right in the vicinity. Why did he flee instead of trying to save her? And why was the knife never found? Most damning of all, Agnes was a mother. Would a mother really abandon her child through suicide? The jury deliberated for nearly an hour. When they returned, their verdict was swift and certain: murder. Duah was sentenced to death. Refusing to accept defeat, Duah launched a desperate appeal, hoping to escape the hangman's noose. First, he attacked his uncle's testimony. That chilling confession: Meku Magi, I have killed Agi. Duah's lawyers argued that it wasn't contemporaneous enough to qualify as res gesti, a legal exception that allows hearsay evidence. They even suggested that his uncle might have misheard, that Duah said Agi is dead instead of I killed Agi. The Court of Appeal wasn't buying it. Yes, indeed, too much time had passed for res gesti, but this was something far more serious: a voluntary confession to a trusted family member. The jury had been properly also warned about the potential mishearing of those words, but they convicted Duah anyway. Second, Duah claimed the evidence was purely circumstantial and that witnesses offered only opinions and not facts. But the court fired back. The circumstantial evidence pointed to one person and one person only. By Duah's own admission, he was the last to see Agnes alive, and of course, the first to know she was dead. He never challenged the pathologist's reports, essentially implicating himself as the one who stabbed her so violently. Duah also argued misdirection of the jury on the part of the judge. The judge, however, was extremely careful to warn the jury that the medical evidence was not conclusive. Fourth came a very audacious claim that the judge's comments were prejudicial, practically inviting the jury to convict him. The judge had questioned why Duah never called for help when other doctors were right there in the vicinity. But the Court of Appeal saw this differently. Duah was a man professing amazing love for Agnes, yet he never raised an alarm to get help from the doctors nearby. The judge's comments were justified, and they highlighted the cold calculation behind Duah's actions. Indeed, he left nothing behind, not even the murder weapon. The knife was never recovered from the scene, and so it all seemed cold, calculated, and deliberate to cover up his actions. Finally, Duah complained that the judge failed to properly direct the jury on his suicide defense, but the court found this story to be absolutely incredible. Agnes was a mother, and as they powerfully noted, the one thing that stays pure when all beside is sullen and can endure when all else passes away, it is a mother's love for her child. Would she really abandon her child? Moreover, Agnes was a doctor with access to all manner of medications. Why would she choose a knife to end her life? The jury rightly rejected this defense as a sham. The Court of Appeal saw through each and every desperate argument. The circumstantial evidence, the confession, the impossible suicide story, everything pointed to one inescapable conclusion: Agnes was murdered by Duah. In the end, what started as a love story became a cautionary tale. Perhaps Agnes's father did see something others missed. Perhaps love, when twisted by obsession and rejection, can become lethal. The appeal was dismissed and the conviction was affirmed. Justice was served. But questions linger. What happened when Duah was with Agnes in her flat for those 3 days? Did Duah's privileged background make him believe he was above consequences? However, one thing remains certain. On that April morning in 1985, love died alongside Dr. Agnes Yeboah in a small flat at Kolebu Teaching Hospital, and the man who claimed to love her more than life itself became the instrument of her death. Follow Superlord GH Studios for more real cases, real stories, real people.